I'm Douglas Christensen, Channel X News.
In area news impacting us this hour on a Monday morning, January 30th, this time it was closer to home than ever before. About 3 hours west of Madawaska, Edmundston, a terrorist attack has killed 6 people, wounded 8 others. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is calling the mass shooting inside the Quebec City Mosque as a terrorist attack on Muslims in a place of worship and refuge. In statements issued after last night's attack, the Prime Minister says it is heart-wrenching to see such senseless violence. Police say 6 people were killed, 8 wounded by gunmen inside the Quebec City Islamic Cultural Center. A provincial police spokesman says the victims are believed to be between the ages of 35 and 70. She says 39 other people survived the attack and that 2 people were arrested shortly after the shooting, one at the scene, the other on a highway east of the downtown core. There is some suspicion the perpetrators were Laval University students. Meanwhile, New Brunswick's premier says 2 people have died and 2 more became ill from carbon monoxide poisoning during the ice storm that wreaked havoc in New Brunswick. The province was rushing more resources to northern areas as recovery efforts continue for small communities where power has been out since Wednesday's ice storm, particularly out on the Acadian Peninsula. Premier Brian Gallant told a news conference in Caracat that it is with deep sadness that he learned the 2 deaths are related to the potentially lethal gas that can be emitted when furnaces are damaged or vents are blocked. Some 200 members of Canada's military are expected to arrive in New Brunswick this morning to help some 20,000 households still without electricity, now 6 days after the storm. A spokeswoman for NB Power told the CBC why this is taking so long.
The challenge we had over the weekend is that the storm has passed, but the ice is still built up on the equipment. And, for example, we were still having poles snapping as of yesterday and Saturday, causing even more outages. It's important to note that the people that we currently have out right now, the 21,000, have not necessarily been out since the beginning of this event. We've had more outages being added throughout the weekend just because of those additional poles kind of breaking through because of the ice.
In other news this morning, the Long Lake Fishing Derby this past weekend was the biggest ever. The event, which began 12 years ago with 246 participants fishing one body of water, Long Lake itself, well, this past weekend more than 1,000 ice fishermen were spread out over 10 bodies of water looking for that fish that would get them into the money. Over the years, the Long Lake Fishing Derby has donated more than $50,000 to the Edgar J. Parody Cancer Fund. Aroostook State Senator Troy Jackson sees the governor's proposed budget as a drag on the rural economy. In an interview with Channel X News, Jackson, a Democrat, says he fears the administration's spending plan will shift more of the tax burden to property tax owners.
Well, we definitely want to do everything we can to try and spur economic activity, especially in rural Maine. And on top of that, property tax relief. This budget, we believe, is going to exacerbate property taxes. And so we want to make sure that, we make our priority that people can stay in their homes and feel secure in what they're doing for work.
Jackson, who lives in Allagash and represents the northern half of the county, spoke with Channel X News last week during Aroostook Day at the legislature. At least 3 protest rallies took place across Maine by people who are angered by Donald Trump's ban on refugees entering the United States and on other issues. At least 1,500 people were in the baggage claim area at the Portland airport yesterday afternoon. Among the travelers who had to squeeze through the crowd to claim baggage was a Somali immigrant who had been held at the Philadelphia airport before being allowed to continue on to Portland and then Lewiston. Another rally was held at the Portland City Hall to call on Republican U.S. Senator Susan Collins to stand up to Trump on issues such as health care and cabinet appointees. A third rally was held in Bangor. Municipalities and home health care agencies are bracing for the impact of Maine's minimum wage hike. Advocates say they will continue to ask the state for increased Maine care reimbursement rates as the minimum wage inches up in the coming years to $12 an hour, at least by the year 2020, when it will be indexed. They also say the hike will make it even more difficult to attract workers who could make about the same money they would cashiering as they would taking care of the state's growing elderly population. Meanwhile, municipalities say the biggest impact will be for seasonal employees like lifeguards, but several municipal leaders say they don't expect the wage hikes to dent their coffers too much. It's a Green Monday in Maine. The first tangible results of the state's voting decision to legalize marijuana being felt as possession and home growth of marijuana becomes legal. Voters narrowly passed the ballot question in November, and the waiting period between the vote and the legalization has expired. Contentious aspects linger, including what rules should govern businesses that will sell marijuana, such as a retail store or social clubs. But it's now legal to smoke it, to gift it, to grow it, and possess up to 2.5 ounces of it. The vote was close, and opponents are continuing to push for restrictions. Voters in RSU 39 will be going to the polls early next month to decide the questions of a new elementary, middle school, and a new gymnasium. RSU 39 is made up of Caribou, Limestone, and Stockholm. The total cost of the project, $48 million. The good news is the state will pay $45.6 million of that. Tim Doak is the superintendent of RSU 39. We asked him why they are looking to build a new school now.
This new school is coming at an opportune time. We have 4 buildings that will be affected by this new school, the youngest being 50-some years old and the oldest being over 90 years old. Caribou Middle School is 90 years old. The Teague Park is over 60 years old. Hilltop is over 50 years old. And then you have, of course, the Learning Center where my office is in our adult ed program. It's over 50 years old. So those very old buildings are very costly to run. Per square footage and heating and operation and maintenance space is well over $2 a square foot. The most expensive one being the Learning Center. And then when we build this new school and get this opportunity from the state to have this new school, it will put us just under $1 per square foot for operation and maintenance and heating and electricity.
Doak says the 4 school buildings the new school will replace will save some big six-figure money for the district in the years ahead.
When you look at school budgets and trying to lower taxes on a yearly basis, I think taking 4 old buildings out of surplus and putting into a new state-of-the-art 21st century school, there's really a savings. And we projected it to be just almost $700,000 in savings from these old buildings.
$700,000 a year?
$700,000 a year is what we have projected just through the heating, the operation and maintenance, and electricity, and all the things that go into running a school that we'll be saving and going to this one brand new school.
The 4 school buildings to be replaced are Teague Park, Hilltop, the 90-year-old Caribou Middle School, and the Learning Center on Bennett Drive. We will continue our conversation with RSU School Superintendent Tim Doak all this week. Finally, in the news this hour, the Canadian dollar is worth 76.04 cents this morning, 7/100 cent lower than it was on Friday afternoon. The loonie is now 1.59 cents higher than it was at the beginning of the new year. U.S. dollar worth $1.31.52 cents Canadian. You've just been uploaded on the X.